Hey guys, so this is our last video for the year. We are doing trig inverses. So we've already learned about trig. Today we're just taking the inverse of those functions. So we've learned about sine, cosine, and tangent. And we said that we can abbreviate them. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, or SO. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's where the ca comes from. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent, which is where the tan comes from, or toa. So today we're going to be doing an inverse. And an inverse is really the same thing as like taking the reciprocal of that function. So if you remember ever talking about reciprocals, reciprocal just means to flip. So we're giving these new names when we flip them and find their inverses. So sine's inverse, if I were to flip the fraction, is something called cosecant. Okay, and I'm going to write out that entire thing. You guys should do that on your notes as well. Cosecant. And we abbreviate that as well because it's kind of a long one. So cosecant, we can abbreviate it as CSC for cosecant. And because we said it's the reciprocal, we're really just thinking about flipping that original fraction. So instead of having opposite over hypotenuse, it's now going to be hypotenuse over opposite. We're taking the reciprocal of that fraction. Cosine, its inverse is called secant, which we abbreviate SEC. And again, we're just going to flip that original fraction. So instead of adjacent over hypotenuse, it's going to be hypotenuse over adjacent. And then finally, our last one, tangent. Its inverse is called cotangent. And we can abbreviate that as COT for cotan. And instead of it being opposite over adjacent, it's now adjacent over opposite. So we're just taking that fraction that we initially had as our original trig ratios, and we're flipping them to find the inverse of that trig ratio. So we're going to try one example together today because they are very similar to what you were doing originally. And notice that at the top I still have that so, ka, toa for you to go back to. And our first step when we learned about SOHCAHTOA was to take our given triangle and just label each of the sides based on the angle. So based on angle A, the opposite side is 12, so I'm just going to label that with an O. You could even write the word opposite if you want to, just so that you kind of have an idea. 12 is opposite angle A. Hypotenuse is the longest side, so that means 15 is going to be my hypotenuse. You can label it with an H, or you can write out the word. And finally, side 9 is that side that's right next to that angle, so that was called the adjacent side. So now that I have my three sides labeled, I'm going to go ahead and start working on my fractions. So the first one that I'm going to do is sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side is 12. And the hypotenuse side is 15. And then again, remember, if we can reduce these fractions, we want to. So number that goes into 12 and 15 is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and divide my fraction, the top and the bottom, by 3. When I divide the top by 3, I get 4. When I divide the bottom by 3, I get 5. And 4 over 5 is my sine of this function. Now, to find the cosecant, it's just the reciprocal, not opposite reciprocal, guys, just the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 4 over 5, if I flip that, is just going to be 5 over 4. It's really simple. And that's my cosecant here. Not a lot of math, just flipping the fraction. All right, let's move on to cosine. Cosine is ka, adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is 9 in my triangle above, and the hypotenuse side, again, is 15. The number that goes into 9 and 15 is 3, so I'm going to divide my fraction, top and bottom, by 3. That gives me a 3 on top and a 5 on the bottom, and so 3 over 5 is the cosine for that angle. Now I want to find the reciprocal. So all I have to do is flip my fraction. The secant is 5 over 3. Finally, our last one is tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So the opposite of angle A we said was side 12. And the adjacent we said was side 9. Again, 12 and 9 can both be divided by 3. So when I divide both the top and the bottom of this fraction by 3, I get 4 over 3. And 4 over 3 is the tangent. So to find the cotangent, again, one last time, I just want to take the reciprocal of my fraction. So instead of 4 over 3, flip it, and you get 3 over 4. And that is the cotangent. And that's all you're doing today, guys. You're sticking with those original sine, cosine, and tangent. And then you're just taking the reciprocal to get that cosecant, secant, and cotangent. If you have any questions, please stop by Zoom. Make sure that all of your answers are reduced as much as possible. I actually think that I gave you really nice ones here today, so you don't have to reduce them. They're reduced already for you. And please, guys, because this is the last video and we're getting close to the end, stop into a Zoom just to say goodbye, show your face one last time, and if you have any questions before your last assessment, definitely. But thank you so much for an amazing year, guys, and I hope you have an enjoyable, relaxing summer.